Hello, everyone. Bill Molyneux here, and it's the 14th of January, 2025. And, well, we're going to do another Bill Basement update and flocking time. Now, I had my flocking material here. I took some of my sand flock material, which is in this tub, and I mixed some of it in with my green, so I have variation in color. Um, we have our mix of green paint, Elmer's glue, and water. And we got this stirred up. And it probably could use, I'm going to need to make a new batch soon. And so Jim Shaw, the great Gettysburg painter, painted the last batch of these Zulus. And I got these Zulus from James Curtis of the Old Dominion Wargaming Group in Hampton Roads. And James Curtis is an awesome guy. So, anyhow, we are going to flock these guys. And then after this, I'm vowing to set up my Gordon of Khartoum scenario where the Egyptians and General Gordon go out and they secure the supplies. And I have a nice camel train that Jim Shaw made for me several years ago. So I had one Zulu, believe it or not, that was somehow I glued him on a base. But we're going to flock all these guys. Now these are MPC Zulus. They're almost 60 millimeter in scale. They're quite inexpensive though. So if you do need Zulus, the Conti ones and all have become sort of scarce. Mr. John at Gettysburg Miniature Shop still has some, even though I bought him out of a lot of them. So, and Jim did a fantastic job throwing some paint on these figures for me. And I'm going to zap these guys off. I have one Confederate artilleryman. I need to paint him yet. I want to have him at the Weiss Fort game at Cold Wars. And want to do that. So I haven't heard from my friend Jack Brendel, who watches the channel. He used to be in the Gettysburg area gamers. Oh, I have to check in on him. I got a Christmas card from him. He moved to Tucson, Arizona over a decade ago. Oh, he lived in York. So I am going to be running my big Weiss Fort game at Cold Wars. Next week, I'm at the Fort Belvoir Museum with a lot of other people to help that museum out with a game day. And it's over in Virginia, right across the borders. About an hour from Baltimore, maybe a little less, depending on traffic. It could be a little bit more. And these Zulus can really not bad at all. Sometimes people don't care for MPC figures as much as Airfix or Marks, especially with the ring hands where, oh, if you're not familiar with ring hands, ring hand figures are figures that don't have weapons or shields in their hands. They have a ring. And the shields or bows or guns or whatever they've been armed with would be a ring, and you stick the gun in there. Well, as kids, of course, you would lose those little guns relatively quick. So you often will find bags of the figures at yard sales or flea markets, but they very rarely still have their weapons because those things were lost eons ago. So now these Zulus will mix in good with my other Zulus, and I'll have a I have a pretty big 54 millimeter Zulu army, by the way. I mean, I really got carried away with that. Now, I ran a Nissan Luana just a few months ago in October for the channel, and I don't think I'm going to run another one for a while. Trying to talk Walt Leach ahead of our Chuckleheads into setting up his Alamo. I have an Alamo, but his is a lot nicer and bigger. He bought it from Mike Priest, a famous author and historian, and it is massive. It really is. And I'm I don't know, I guess I could set up my Alamo, and if I set up the Alamo here in the basement and spend a good couple hours making a video and running it, would you watch it? Um, so that's the question. Would it be worth watching? There's so much Alamo stuff out there as it is. But so my Gordon of Khartoum scenario, if you watch Gordon of Khartoum, there's a time where Charlton Heston, Gordon, heads out with a foraging party, and they go out and a couple villages and so forth to bring back much needed supplies to the besieged city of Khartoum. Well, on the way back, they get attacked by the Mahdi's forces, and they have to fight a withdrawing action with their supplies still intact. It's a pretty cool, I think, scenario, and I think it'll make a nice game. It's not the whole Mahdi army, of course, otherwise he would be overrun. Um, some kind of detachment, both infantry and cavalry. And the Egyptians have a couple units of and some cavalry too, I believe, and then their they're not wagons, they're camels uh, with their baggage on them. And I have a lot of nice 54 millimeter camels with just supplies on them, so that would look good. So I guess we need to do the rows of 4. Boy, Jim did a really nice job. I'm hoping to see him in a few weeks at the Coal Wars event. So now the Williamsburg muster, as far as I know, looks like it's probably going to be canceled. They're still trying to find a couple places, but they had hotel issues, and it is what it is. And you can't cry over spilt war game conventions. Now, Bruce, he sends me a note, and I don't know where Bruce lives, but he paints figures while listening to me jibber jabber like this. And I think it's sort of cool that when I used to work on figures at the Gettysburg group, quite often I would do it Saturday afternoons, and Jack Brendel, when he still lived in Gettysburg, him and I would watch a war movie or two and paint figures or terrain, and he is a phenomenal terrain builder. But and then once in a while we'd have the whole group together on a weekend Saturday and have a barbecue and have the kids and wives, and we would make hills and stuff. And as a group, we also made roads. And the Gettysburg roads were quite the thing. It's a 2-inch wide strip of felt, and then put a bead of silicone over them, over the road, and then take a spatula and spread it out, and then put a couple lines for tire tracks or tank tracks, whatever you want. And boy, they came out really nice. And I've made videos of how we did that, and we used to even sell them sometimes. And so the Sudan thing is coming up. I've had several people ask me about running an ogre game with the giant board game of ogre I got in the other room, and I said I would look into doing a quick ogre game. And if you don't know what ogre is, in the late 70s, early 80s Steve Jackson games, he made the futuristic tank battle sort of in the time period of the Terminator, I think would be the best way to put it. And the giant killer robotic tank would be set to destroy the opposing army and its small tanks. So think of a giant killer tank against a whole mess of Shermans. And it was very popular and still is. And they made lead miniatures for it, 3D printed miniatures. And Walt O'Hare of the Scrum Con, he does a lot of ogre. He's a great wargamer too, and IT dude. And so it's amazing how the hobby has changed so much from, the Avalon Hill board war games, and you're talking board games and just SPI and a few little companies. So now everyone in the world is printing board war games, including myself. And by the way, don't forget your Goober calendar. This is the last week. I'm always trying to push the Goober calendars to help the Maryland Veterans Program and Museum. So I'm sort of excited about this Gordon of Khartoum scenario. By the way, should I use the Sword and the Flame, Death by the Desert, or the King's, forgot, When We Were Kings, or whatever it's called, the little blue book, the Osprey book? I'm having a mental breakdown. I've been up since 4 this morning. No, been up since 4. All right, boy, it's amazing how everything comes together with just a little bit of paint, huh? Just there we go. There's quite a few Zulus in this box. I don't know how long it took Jim to paint these, but they're very, very nice. Oh, we have one that came off a poker chip, which is no big deal. We'll just glue on the... Oh, I had someone ask me, the reason I was gluing all my figures on poker chips was it gave them weight. These are a very thick poker chip, and it has metal inside. It's not a real cheap poker chip. So I was doing individually based wargaming. As I've gotten older, I have thousands and thousands of 54 millimeter figures. If you look down this one wall, it's just stacks and stacks of plastic tubs of figures. Well, it got to the point I was not wargaming as much because it was taking me so long to get the figures out and move them when they were based single. So I did an experiment and put the figures in the four bases. So they're basically there's four figures to a base. Some of my skirmishers I did three, but by doing that, it made it where I just can pop open a box and in 5 minutes I have a couple hundred figures on the table and I am playing a game. So now I can't remember if I have all the Egyptians flocked or not with the sand color. So if I don't know if I will take the time to flock their bases and their or not. But I know they're painted tan, but I can't remember if I did the sand flocking or not. Oh, the colonial wars are interesting with the Zulus and Pathans, and Rudyard Kipling, where with the poem "We fought with many men across the seas, and some were brave and some were not. The Pathan, the Zulu, and Burmese, but the Fuzzy Wuzzy was the finest of the lot." And that was Queen Victoria. She had her armies everywhere. Um, I am thinking of doing a Donald Featherstone video on his life as a wargamer. So if you have any Donald Featherstone stories or something that I could read on a video, and I'll put out pictures of him. And some of the books are so amazing. He's in his kitchen over his stove with a big pot full of lead, boiling it to pour into molds. I mean, and it's a book for you to learn how to make your own figures. I mean, people would freak out now if you brought home a book for a teenager or a young child and said, "Here, get a pot of boiling lead and make some figures." Is really amazing when you think about it. And so I was thinking of tying in a lot of those old pictures, and his naval war book and aircraft books are good. He has a naval war book that has a lot of neat chapters in it for all kinds of naval combat with some pretty good rules for that time period. Oh, so we're going to be cleaning up our paintbrush here and go up and see how the wife is doing. She's not feeling the best. Not feeling the best. Oh, and so, you guys can everybody can hear the rescue hounds. Now I can tell that's somebody walking down the sidewalk that one of the pups has seen. That's not a UPS or a postman. If we get somebody actually at the door, it's crazy town here. Now I have that new board game, Small Wars, Last of the Mohegans game, and I started reading the rule book last night, and I'm going to spend a half an hour a night on the rules and um, get prepared for that game or to play it in the next week or so. But while I'm motivated to get these figures flocked, I mean, Jim was nice enough to paint these for me, and I get sidetracked a lot, but I do try to get to things ASAP as best I can. So after I get done flocking these, I clean the paintbrush and check on the wife, say goodnight to all of you, And it's sort of funny. My Cold Wars advertisement video, I don't know if it'll help motivate people to come to Cold Wars in Gettysburg. When I lived in Gettysburg, I was only about 6 miles from the Eisenhower. Now, we had a couple guys in our wargaming group. Rob Winger, he lived right across the street practically from the Eisenhower. And Pete, he actually lived in the apartment complex behind the hotel, the condos. So that was funny. And then, of course, Mr. John of the Gettysburg Miniature Shop lives right up the road, practically within walking distance. Depends how much you like walking. So, but these Zulus are coming along really well. So, I don't know about next week's event at Fort Belvedere. And as of right now, my wife is not up to going to Virginia this weekend. So either I'll go down alone to check on stuff and do some chores for her. The Bill's Bunker Wargaming boathouse was colder than a son of a gun, so there is no wargaming in there. I'm looking at a propane heater tank in there. Some kind of little propane heater. Being in Virginia, the weather is much different than Maryland, and a lot different than upstate New York. So the heat part isn't such a big deal as trying to figure out how to keep it cool in the summer. So, but I don't know. I just like to stay busy. Um, just trying to stay busy. And tomorrow I have a meeting with the CSS News Board people for the CSS News Museum, the only Confederate ironclad that's above water. It's a really neat museum. I've made a lot of videos of it. Well worth visiting. If you're in Kinston, North Carolina, or if you can, just watch my videos, because all the video money from here all the way out until April is going to Kinston to the Save the Weiss Fork battlefield. They're all sort of intertwined. And boy, they look really good when they're flocked. By the way, the poster behind me, I have a Union ironclad one on the other wall in the other room. This is the Confederate one behind me, and they're sold at the CSS News Museum. So I don't know if they could ship one to you or how to get one, but they're really neat. Confederate ironclads of the Civil War. And then I have the Union ironclads of the Civil War. And probably you can go to Amazon and Google it and find out who sells them or something. So we'll see what happens with the board meeting tomorrow for the CSS News. I know they're getting ready for the big anniversary of the Battle of the Weiss Forks. So the Zulus are done. I'm going to go see about cleaning my paintbrush. And there we go. The next thing on the table really is to get this Confederate soldier done. And I think I can paint him in a half hour. And I'll use the actual Marks figure. And hold on, I'll go grab him. Okay, everyone, let me get him into focus. So this is the one that would come in the box. It's a collectible. And then here is the rubbery one. Get them side by side. So this one's rubbery. This is a very brittle plastic, and they're identical. And I'm going to get this one to look like this one, hopefully. There's not a lot of different paint on this, so it shouldn't be that difficult, even for me. All right. Well, let's set these guys here. Take this, and I'm going to say, thank you for hanging out with me and watch me flock figures. I realize this may only get a half a dozen views, but that's all right. Any views helps my funding for the Weiss Fork Battlefield through April. Stay safe, be kind, be courteous, and laugh. Life is short.